Hey guys, how's it going? It is Kire here with another Infinite Magicraid video, and in today's video I want to talk about debuffs, and more specifically, always being able to land them. So I've done a lot of testing here, and I think I've found some useful things, some things that I think need a little bit more testing, but a lot of this can actually be really helpful, I think, going forward here in this game. So mainly, the main thing that I didn't like about this game that I started to notice is that there's no such thing as a very consistent AoE debuff. That was one thing that was I really liked in Raid, for example, because I like to be able to put debuffs on the enemy in a pretty consistent state instead of having to time my own buffs, because the faster you go, the better stats you have. That means you could potentially overlap or over speed against enemies, and it makes things inconsistent. Or I'm constantly having to hold back stats because I'm going too fast, for example. It was really annoying. And then if you look at a lot of these characters in this game, no one has a consistent, just straight up here, when you book them, 100% chance to land something. For example, we'll be talking about this character here in Visali, and she has an AoE attack down, but it's only when booked a 70% chance. Or you don't even need books, it's just guaranteed 70% chance. Here you go. Here's another example here that's kind of a bummer, in my opinion, if this wasn't the case, where it's like 70% chance to reduce all speed of enemies by 40% for 2 turns. That's not really something I would want to have. I want to be able to rely on it. I want to be able to always have 100% chance, whether it be the attack down, the speed down. There's a massive difference between a boss one-shotting you or not. What I ended up doing is I just want to try more and more effective. And I think that is the secret to making everything more consistent when it comes to landing debuffs. So I have some of them that I can prove that are pretty much 100%. I don't think I've ever missed them. And then there's others that are not consistent, but the more affected actually does improve the chances. So here, let me show you the testing here. What I've noticed is you take the effect hit of your character versus the effect resistance of the enemy, and then the difference between the chance of landing, you got to exceed that amount. So like, for example, I have a 70% chance to land with Visali. They have a 44, or like, let's say 60 resistance. You would need 90 effect hit to be able to pretty much guarantee it. But the more the better for something like this. But you don't need to go crazy. It's just you want to have a ton more than they already have. So for example, let me show you guys my Visali here. Right now we have 101, 70% chance to land. And then we'll look at the enemies here in the first wave, because the first wave, it's the same effect res for whatever level. So this is 26. So this is the stage I'm doing for the bosses in dungeons. So it's like, this is the thing I really care about being consistent with. If I happen to not be that consistent at stage 29, for example, I don't really care, because it's not going to waste a key or waste energy, for example. So these guys have 64. I have 100. So I have 36 over them. And then also you get, since I'm faster than them, I have 9% more, and then I also get the 6% on the first turn. So that's why you're seeing the 107.8 there. And then we do an AoE. This is 100%, and then I can try it again, and it just keeps landing. So the odds would show that it wouldn't even land. All of these landing twice in a row would be pretty rare for a 70% chance to happen move, let alone 3 times. And then we can do it again, 4 times. So this is like something I can completely rely on to do this. And then that's amazing, because it just completely raises the value of something like this immensely. It goes from like, okay, that's a nice bonus, to, okay, I can really build my team around relying on the fact that if I get enough effect res, or effect hit, I'm going to be able to 100% reduce the attack of these enemies at this stage. Because nothing was more frustrating than doing these dungeon runs, and the amount of damage that these dungeons do is just so stupid. Like, you get one shot completely. Like on this boss here, on his, let me see if it shows it. Boss guide, his move here where he hits for 500% attack damage to an enemy with the lowest HP. If the target's HP is below 50%, the damage increases by 120%, which I'd be okay with dying to that, but I get one shot by just full health with no shield and no attack down. I just get completely one shot with the 500% attack damage. So having that 40% attack down is a really big deal against that, especially that portion there. And he does that in the beginning, like once every 2 turns. So it's like you got to really have something. You either got to have the Catherine shield or the attack down to really rely on to make sure your characters don't die there. With that in mind, that was making me really think about other characters here. And for example, the ones I got it to work on, notice how he has 2 stages of 100% attack to all enemies with a 50% or 80% chance when booked of HP burn. When I was able to just get him over the effect hit threshold here, so 80% effect hit, that's 80% chance to land. They have 64. I'm pretty much landing this 100% of the time. When you combine the other stuff too in your emblems, the 9% there, the 6% here. So I've done 100 runs of Negia for the event, and I haven't lost a single one yet. And this run really relies on this stuff happening consistently to do it. And it's really cool to see that the game actually has it built in that you can 100% hit these moves. Because then it made me want to think, okay, how far can we go with this? The one that is kind of a bummer to me, but I haven't been able to get 100% consistent yet, but I have noticed a massive difference in being able to land this, is Ben Austin here. Because he has a 3-turn cooldown on his E2, and on waves this would be amazing to be able to consistently not only reduce the cooldown, or reduce the cooldowns of the characters or increase the cooldowns of them, and then also be able to get a turn immediately. So it used to be very random when I would do this, because I would have like maybe 60, 70% effect hit. But if you really crank it up, you get a way better chance. And then it just keeps going up higher and higher. But I want to say that there may be something different when it comes to attribute debuffs and like actual hard CC, because I've noticed that stuns and freezes are not nearly as consistent as I'm able to land attribute debuffs. For example, like attack down or speed down. Those seem to be things that I can do consistently 100% if I meet these effect hit thresholds, whereas stuff like this is not always 100%. I've gotten him up to 140% effect hit, and it is very consistent at hitting 2 on 4 of them, and then maybe one person doesn't get it. Maybe one person gets 1, but I've never had one of them miss, and there's always 4 people that are getting it. So it's like a massive increase in my effect chance here, because this is really only a 50% of the time. It's supposed to only happen 50% of the time here, which is not good odds. You need 2 coin flips to land for it to work. But for me to really change it to way more than that is pretty sweet. Because 2, I used to never get this. Like these things were rare to be able to hit a double coin flip essentially multiple times. But because I have so much more effect hit, it is increasing my odds by that. But this, as you'll see here, as I do it multiple times, where with Visali, I was able to do it every single time, never missed a single one. It's always consistent. Whereas this, maybe not necessarily the case. So we got 2, 1, 2, 2, and 2. So like there's an example of dropping 1 there, even though we have the effect hit threshold. And then, for example, let's look at this one here. We got 2, 1, 2, 2, and 2. So there's usually one person in here that might not have gotten it. And I've tried hitting it, like hitting the other person or whatever, seeing if that changes anything. So here's one where she didn't get it, but everyone else got it. So I just think it's interesting that being able to have more effect hit than the effector has actually increases it. Whereas in this situation, multiple people didn't get it at all. This never happened when I was at 140% effect hit, for example. But since I'm only at 103, it slips by. And I think maybe it's either more punishing on hard a CC, where you need a ton of effect hit to be able to do it, or it's because, or I was thinking too, because this is a 35%er, anytime that there's a 70%er to land, I've always been able to just crank up the effect hit and it works every time. Maybe they're a little bit more strict on if it's a 50% chance or a 35% chance to land as one of these abilities here. So hopefully this was helpful, because I think going forward, looking at people that can land stuns only 40% of the time, well, okay, that just means you need a ton of effect hit, and then it will actually land 90% of the time, for example, or like 95, whatever. And then HP burners, like for example, the new epic that came out, he has like 70% chance to land on his HP burn. Well, okay, we'll just crank up his effect hit. He has pretty much a 90% or 100% chance to land, because the HP burners and then the attribute debuffs, I was always able to get consistent. It was like the freezes and the stuns, and then Ben Austin stuff that I was not able to get consistent. So I think this is a pretty big find that's going to massively change how we look at characters. Also, it means effect hit is way more valuable than it used to be. So hopefully this was helpful and you guys can apply it to your accounts. I think I'm going to do a video here in the future talking about all the characters that I think knowing that they're 100% chance to land is going to make a massive difference in how good they are. So with that, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Also, if you guys want to test any of this, please do so. And if you find anything awesome or any discovery here, especially with the things that I couldn't figure out, that'd be highly appreciated. So with that, guys, I'm out of here. Peace.